All right, everyone, we're going to go ahead and get started. Those of you who commented in the questions feature about the sound, please confirm that the sound is working again. We were muted there for a little bit. But as I said, please utilize the chat or questions feature in the panel on the side of your screen if you have any questions or technical difficulties throughout the webinar. But we're going to go ahead and get started. Looks like the sound is working for most people. And yeah, as I said, any questions, please put those in the chat feature. Everyone is on mute right now, except for the presenters. So that is your way to utilize the chat feature.
Okay, well, hi, everybody. I'm Rick Lawson. For those of you who haven't met me before, I am a watershed planner here at the Huron River Watershed Council. And I coordinate a number of programs here, including our stormwater programs, which is sort of the umbrella that is covering the chemistry and flow monitoring program. And Andrea, you want to introduce yourself?
Hi, I'm Andrea Payne. I am a Watershed Planning Associate for the Huron River Watershed Council, and I coordinate the volunteer component of the Chemistry and Flow Monitoring Program.
Okay. Go ahead and go to the next slide. All right, so obviously this is a little bit different. We've changed our planning around. Typically, we host these orientation sessions in person. We do a couple of them so that we get 2 different locations in the watershed, usually one here at our offices in Ann Arbor. And then the second one is down in Wayne County. But because of COVID, because of the coronavirus pandemic, we have moved our orientation to this webinar function. And by the way, this is the first time we've done it this way. And so if things are a little clunky, that would be my fault. But we're hoping it'll be pretty smooth and should be a fairly good facsimile. However, due to COVID, we've also had to adapt the programming and scheduling for the entire program at this point. It's obviously a changing situation, as you've probably all been reading and watching and seeing in the news. So we're trying to adapt to that as information changes. Currently, we are planning to continue the program, but postponing the start for the volunteer portion of the program. Right now, we are targeting a May 9th program launch, but we are going to be watching that situation. That could change, could get delayed even further. It is even possible that the monitoring may be canceled for the year if this continues on and gets progressively worse. So we will be doing our best to communicate as we get more information and our push to change. But for the time being, that is the plan. We will be launching volunteer monitoring in the first week of May, or second week of May. So I just want to pause here if there are if any urgent questions have come up that related to the pandemic. We will be addressing some of those as we go, some of the changes in procedures and so forth. But are there any urgent questions that we need to address right now?
Don't see that any have come up regarding COVID-19, but if you do think of any during the webinar, please feel free to type it in the questions feature in your toolbar on the side of the webinar.
Okay, great. Well, then we'll carry on.
And before Rick goes to the next slide, we're actually going to cut off our video now. We'll turn it back on at the end of the webinar. But we did first want to distribute a poll to see where all of you are from. So I'm going to go ahead and launch the poll. And go ahead and complete it with whatever county that you are from. So we want to get a sense of where our volunteers today are spread around the watershed.
We'll give you a few more seconds to complete your entries.
All right. And it looks like most of you are from Washtenaw County. We have 60%, around 20% from Wayne County, and then another 10% from other, and a few people from Livingston County. So welcome to all of you. All right, we'll get back to the slides. Go ahead, Rick.
Okay. All right, so what we're going to present for you today is basically a program overview to give you a sense of what the program is, why we're doing it, how we schedule our outings, excuse me, and what the field work looks like, and what you can be doing to contribute to our knowledge about the watershed. So yeah, so that'll be the extent of it. Your field training, learning about the techniques, the specifics about the techniques will come when we are able to go out in the field. So your first outings will be your field training. So really the top goal for the program is it is a science program. We use this data that is collected by the monitoring to really gain an understanding of the watershed. So we really do everything we can to make sure that we're getting consistent and reliable data from the volunteers. We also have a number of metrics that we use to look at that and to compare with from time to time with professionals, and our results have shown that we are able to do that, to consistently get good results that are representative of the streams that we're out there monitoring. We also use the data to educate decision makers. This is really important, and we've had a number of really good successes in using that data. Everything mostly from local perspective. So we work in our stormwater programs and in several other programs to educate decision makers on crafting new local ordinances and rules and regulations. Also programs that local governments can engage in. And then we've also used this data all the way up to the state level. The phosphorus phosphorus fertilizer law that went into effect in 2012 was accomplished in part because our executive director went to the legislature and argued for that using the results of this data, showing that the pilot program that was conducted by the city of Ann Arbor, Ypsilanti Township, and a few other local governments was effective at reducing phosphorus levels in the river. So it has been used to good effect. And the third goal that we have for the program is really what all of you do, which is to engage in the watershed, get out and learn about it, explore it, and then take a personal responsibility for it and educate others around you. That's our stewardship goal, is to use all of you to gain a better knowledge and to become ambassadors, for the watershed and advocates for it. In fact, many of the things that we do in educating decision makers are accomplished by people who started out as volunteers, who then go on and work within their local governments as better voices many times than even we can be. So that's a really important goal as well. We started the program in 2002 in response to work that was being done to identify and characterize the problem with algae blooms in Ford and Belleville lakes. That was the first nutrient-based policy to control, a TMDL policy, total maximum daily load, for anywhere in the state. And we realized that there was really not a whole lot of information, a lot of data on where the phosphorus was coming from in the watershed. So we started this monitoring program to collect that data, and since then it has grown into a much bigger program that started with, I think, 10 volunteers at 9 sites, with sampling once a month for 5 months. We now have visited over 60 sites throughout the watershed. We have hundreds of volunteers over the years, and are now sampling twice a month for 6 months, and collecting a wider range of constituent parameters from the watershed as well. The funding for the program comes from our stormwater program, where we are working with local governments and the staff from those local governments to comply with stormwater regulations. And this is the monitoring that we do is part of their progress evaluation, is used as that. It is probably the most extensive monitoring that is done for that program in the state of Michigan. And so it helps them to understand what is working and what is not, and as far as their policies and control methods. And so it serves that purpose and allows us to fund the program that also feeds into our knowledge about the watershed in many other ways too. Yeah, so that's how we got going. What we're currently measuring in the program is this range of parameters. So we have 5 different things that we're collecting in water samples that get analyzed at 3 local labs currently. These are municipal labs that are testing for drinking water or wastewater, and they also have the ability to test the ambient water that you all will be collecting from various sites throughout the watershed. So starting off the top at nutrients and the sediments that carry the phosphorus along with it, as well as a human health indicator in bacteria, E. coli. And more recently, we've added chloride as an indicator of road salt application and how that's moving through the watershed, both on the surface and through groundwater. We also take instantaneous measurements directly in the field, as you see from this photo. Is currently being captured. So those range of parameters are also taken directly. Conductivity is a broad measure of pollutants in the water that can tell us road salts, but also things like metals and other things that have an ability to conduct electricity. So ions generally are what is picked up with that. Yeah, and then in addition to the chemistry, the volunteers are also measuring the stream flow at the time that those measurements are captured. And this allows us to gain an understanding of the total amount of the pollutants that are moving through that particular stream or river site at the point in time that everything is measured. So that's an important component. We also look at stream flow and how that varies as an additional way to look at the watershed and understand that particular physical variable. Hydrology is sort of underlies a lot of what's going on in the watershed. So the better we understand that, the better we can, take measures to improve the characteristics of it, to improve other measures like habitat quality and chemical quality as well. So we sample currently this year. We are planning to sample across 3 counties. Every year we have been monitoring in Washtenaw and Wayne County. And then periodically every 3 years, we sample in Livingston County as well. And so this is an on year for Livingston County. So we'll be monitoring at sites there as well. We have sites on the direct river itself, like the top photo you see there at Riverside Park in Ypsilanti. It's one of our river sites. And we also, many more of our sites are in tributaries to the river. So we are targeting sites that we can use to gain an understanding of where pollutant sources are, which tributaries are contributing more than others, for example. In addition to the Huron River watershed sites in Wayne County, we are also monitoring neighboring watersheds in Ecorse Creek and Combined Downriver, as those watersheds are very narrow and sort of direct feeders to Detroit River and Lake Erie. We've partnered with the communities there to do a broader monitoring program.
Okay, so now we're going to launch another poll asking which county or counties are you interested in volunteering in. Volunteers in this program, oops, sorry about that. I think it just, there we go. Volunteers in this program are able to monitor in any counties of interest. So even though you live in Washtenaw County, you are more than welcome to volunteer in other counties as well. So if you can go ahead and select all that apply. Oh wait, hold on. Let me launch it again. Oops. Okay, well, I accidentally clicked close and it doesn't seem to be working again. So I'm gonna figure this out and then we'll continue on with the presentation. As we said, this is our first time doing this, so it seems like you're only allowed to share it once, and then if you accidentally select close, we can't reopen it, but we'll go ahead and let Rick move on to the next slide.
Great, that's fine. Okay, so yeah, so can you pull down the question so I can see that slide while you're working on that? Great. So we have, the program is divided into a couple of 3 different aspects, really. We have long-term sites, which are the river sites and sort of the endpoints of the tributaries. Those are considered long-term sites that we go out to twice per month. Regularly, we're going out from April through September, but of course this year we're not starting until May. So we will be going twice a month from May to September. And we go there every year so that we have a long-term record and we can look at trends at those sites and see how things are changing. And this data is critically valuable to us. We've got some really good results from that data that you're welcome to take a look at anytime you want. We can direct you to where the reports on those results are. We also have investigative sites that we go to for one season, and we move these around and they change up every year. So we go for a given year, they're the same site. So we have one set of sites that we go to. But then we get 1 year's worth of data. Usually these are upstream of our long-term sites, and then we compare that data so that we get the samples are collected on the same day, usually within an hour, and so that we can have a direct comparison upstream and downstream and see how they're different. That helps us to break up the watershed and have an understanding of what part of the watershed may be more of a source of a particular parameter. For example, phosphorus or E. coli or sediments. Where is the problem area, and that can help us refine where we target solutions at. And then the third aspect of the program is our storm sampling, and this is more spontaneous based on when storms occur and where they occur. We do have a system. We've been working with a partnership with an environmental engineering lab from the University of Michigan to set up sampling node locations where we're getting regular real-time water level recorded measurements and remote control of devices that are called auto samplers that are basically robots that will take a sample of water when they're told to. And so when we do get a rainstorm and we see a rainstorm coming in, we start sampling that and sample across the course of the hydrologic change. So as it goes up and comes back down, we're taking samples from one or more sites that we can then send to the lab. That helps us to get an understanding of how the pollutant dynamics change across the storm and how storm results are different than baseline results or base flow results. And so that's really helpful for our understanding of how things change in urban watersheds or more rural watersheds as well. And then finally, every year we have special events, special types of special studies that we might be engaging in. This year we have quite a bit going on around bacteria sampling. So we'll be having targeted sampling in Honey Creek, which is in Scioto Township mostly, and then at select sites throughout the watershed. And we're working in partnership with the state of Michigan Eagle Department, Environment, Great Lakes, and Energy, is doing a Lake Erie study. And so we're working with them on all the drainages going to Lake Erie, the western basin of Lake Erie in Michigan, and trying to get a better handle on bacteria sources there. So we will be going to sites in a focused way there. So if you're interested in that, we'll be putting out a call for volunteers sometime in later summer, assuming, of course, that all this goes forward.
Okay, it looks like the poll is working again, so I'm going to go ahead and relaunch the poll, asking which counties you are interested in volunteering in. Rick, we had a question about why samples are only collected in Washtenaw, Wayne, and Livingston counties and not Oakland County. Would you want to answer that while folks respond to the poll?
Yeah, it's a great idea. Yeah, so again, going back to the funding of the program, for us to be able to develop, work with the labs, do this kind of recruitment and training, and evaluate all the data, it does cost some resources for us. And so the funding comes from the local municipalities through their stormwater compliance. Currently, we are working with groups of local municipalities in Livingston, Washtenaw, and Wayne counties. We've been working to develop those relationships in Oakland County, and we are getting closer to getting some agreement on that. We now have, I think, about half of the municipalities and the county agencies are interested in moving forward with a program up there. And we're currently in negotiations trying to figure out if we want to just do that for the Huron River watershed, or if we can do something similar to Wayne County and work with the areas that were also in the Rouge River and the Clinton River watersheds as well. So we hope to have something going next year in Oakland County, but that still remains to be negotiated.
And then someone asked about Genesee and Shiawassee counties. I don't believe the Huron goes into those, correct?
That's correct. The Huron is in small, really tiny portions of Ingham County and Jackson County, but not in Genesee or what was the other one?
Shiawassee.
Shiawassee, yes. There is the Shiawassee River and all the drainages that go out to Saginaw Bay, and some of that is in Livingston County as well. Yeah, we're currently focused as much as possible on the Huron. That's enough for us to work with.
All right, on to the next slide. When we sample.
You want to give the poll results first?
Oh, I did. I shared them while you were talking.
Oh, you did. Yep. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Great. Okay, and so we currently, the schedule looks like this, what you're looking at here, and it is different for each of the different counties. The reason for that is the different labs that we're working with. So in Washtenaw County, all the samples get analyzed by the Ann Arbor drinking water and wastewater lab. They have a combined facility, just under a mile from our offices here, and they have the flexibility they're open 24 hours, so they can receive samples at almost any time. So we have the ability to have sampling times on Saturdays and Sundays, as well as in the evening, and can get those results from them. In Wayne County, we're working with the Downriver Utility and Wastewater Authority. They're in Wyandotte, thank you. And they have a slightly more limited schedule, but we are able to work on Sundays, as well as I think one evening slot there for delivery. And then in Livingston County, they are a 9 to 5, very small operation. So we're a lot more limited in when samples can be delivered to that lab. This would be a good time to indicate that right now, the labs have restricted their access. All 3 of the labs that we're working with have restricted access to the public. And we are working with them to negotiate some way for us to be able to still drop samples off with still limiting human interaction and maintaining safe distances and all that. So that's the part of the program that's really the most up in the air. So we'll know more. We get more information on almost a daily basis. So we just had, for example, conversations on Friday with the Dubois lab in Wayne County. It's not, to be honest with you, it's not looking good with that lab. They've been told that they need to, they probably won't be able to do our sampling there, but we're not closing that door entirely yet. We're still trying to do some negotiations and figure out if there's a way to compromise. But it is difficult, and we have to be understanding of their desires to keep the lab safe, and they serve a critical function in making sure that our waters are safe, primarily drinking water and the wastewater that they're releasing downstream. So we have to respect that first and foremost. All right, so that is when we sample. So then once we have collected all the data, the important thing is using that data. So it's great to be able to get those results coming in and see them immediately and get a quick understanding of what the current conditions are. But we also want to look at, it's really important for us to look at the data throughout the season and then comparing year to year and looking at the trends. And we do that in a variety of ways. As the data comes in, as you guys get results and we get them back from the lab, we quickly look at the parameters and the standards that we're measuring against to see if anything is any red flags come up. And if they do, those are some things that we respond to very quickly, working with our municipal partners to try to identify, if additional resources can be used to investigate potential problems. That has happened a number of times with connectivity and also some spills that we've identified with some spike results. So that's like sort of more direct or proximate pollution sources that we get involved in. For longer term, when at the end of the season we take a look at the data and see if any changes have occurred at our sites, or if any of the investigative sites are really off the charts. And with that, in a similar way, we communicate with the local municipality in which the sites are. We might use that data to drive project development. That's been used quite a bit. We use that data in project funding proposals to justify a range of projects, anything from broad-based education to specific on-the-ground restoration or green infrastructure programs. So we really use this to develop programs and projects in a data-driven way. This is the foundational data that we use. And then at the state level, we have developed a really good relationship with Eagle, so much so that they have developed a number of listings of water. The states are all required to evaluate their streams, their water resources, and list those that are not serving designated uses. And so the state has used our data to develop those listings in the Huron River. And then that leads to additional policies like the TMDL that I mentioned previously. And then beyond developing projects, this gets used in reporting for progress evaluation, and I think that's about the extent.
Thanks, Rick. All right, this is Andrea. I will be taking over now. So I'm going to walk through with all of you how you go about signing up to volunteer in our program and what a usual outing looks like. Usually during our in-person webinar or in-person orientation, we show a YouTube video called Monitoring the Waters of the Huron. If you have not yet seen it, I would highly recommend you check it out on HRWC's YouTube channel. It's also on the landing page for the Chemistry and Flow Monitoring program, so I'm sure many of you saw it when you were signing up for this program, but it really gives a good overview of what a typical outing for this program looks like. But before I dive into the details, I am going to launch another poll, and that is, have you ever been in waders before? We're just curious to understand which of you have waded in our creeks and streams before, and if this is new for some of you. And just to clarify, we have waders that we provide for all of our volunteers, so it's not equipment that you need to worry about. Okay, it looks like I will close the poll, and 71% of you have been in waders before, and 29% have not. So fascinating to know that.
That's great. So it looks like many of you have been out in the waters before in other capacities. So you should have no problem then in getting out and doing the work in the watershed. But for those of you who are new to it, it'll be an interesting experience for you. And before long, you'll start developing webbed feet, and you might even start breathing through your skin. You'll be so in love with the water.
Okay, so usually during the webinar or during our orientation, we walk volunteers through our sign-up process, which is usually open as of the orientation, but given a lot of the question marks with the launch of our season this year, we don't currently have sign-ups available for volunteers because we're holding until we get a green light from our labs and partners that we can proceed with the season. And also us internally are really wanting to prioritize your safety and follow CDC compliance guidelines. So I'll still walk through it so you all get a sense of how to sign up and be an active participant in our program. I also do want to note that while you may have signed up and in the description it said 8 sampling trips is required to participate in the program, we have definitely modified that due to the situation with COVID. So I would not stress if you feel like you cannot get 8 sampling trips in this year. This year, we're really hoping that folks can get between 4 and 6 given the limitations that we have on our season, but we're definitely flexible given the situation that we've come into contact with this year. All right, so on the left-hand side of the screen, you'll see a little box that says sampling sign up. And that is located every year on our ChemFlow volunteer resources page. So that's really the hub and landing page for all volunteers in the program. It has everything from the site map, it has all of the procedures and directions that you can reference if you forget them throughout the season. And then it also has this sign up page where you can go ahead and click on these blue links that take you to a third-party website called Sign Up Genius, which you can see over on the right-hand side. That is a screenshot of the Sign Up Genius page. So I'm going to go ahead real quickly and show you how we sign up on Sign Up Genius. I'm going to go ahead and bring that up shortly. Okay. All right, so now you should see a copy of my screen. This is the Sign Up Genius page. This is an old one from 2018. But essentially what you do is you look for opportunities where there are volunteer slots available. So when you see a slot available, it'll say right here, sign up. And you can click as many as you want to sign up for. We ask, though, at the beginning of the season, as we're working through field training, that you only sign up for 1 slot in the first month of monitoring. So go ahead, select which ones that you want to sign up for. Scroll all the way down to the submit and sign up. I guess actually you don't have to scroll all the way down, but select submit and sign up. And then you can put in your name and email here in these boxes, and your preferred email contact right here. And then also right here, if you have a comment, feel free to add that in as well.
What kind of comments would they put in there?
You would include, if, for example, you're a parent signing up for a child, or if you're going out with a friend or a partner who's also participating in the program, you can put, you can change this quantity over here. So if it's you and another person, oh, I guess you can't do that. But anyways, I will modify it for you on the back end to make sure that you have signed up for 2 people. So go ahead and enter if you are signing up for multiple people beyond yourself, enter that in the comment box.
I think you can only do the 1 because there's only 1 slot left.
Yes, yeah, you're right.
So usually you could do more than 1.
Thanks, Rick.
Sure.
Okay, so we'll go back to the presentation. And off to the next slide. Great, so every week we post the schedule for the following outings, so the following week's outings. So for Washtenaw County, if you've signed up, we will post the site assignments. So we dictate which sites you go to. We try to revolve them and rotate so that most folks, if you're volunteering on one day, most of the time you'll be able to see different areas of the watershed. Post that on the volunteer resources page so you know if you're taking flow measurements, who your team members are, and which sites you're going to. We also send out an email that week ahead with all this information. So you'll be notified if you do tend to sign up earlier in advance. You'll know that the week is coming up because we'll send that email out ahead of time. So for a typical outing, either myself or some team leaders will coordinate with you ahead of time via email. They'll usually send out an email with their contact information or the contact information of the other team members, as well as where to meet and if you will be carpooling or not. The second bullet says monitoring still occurs even without a leader. So keep that in mind during your training, that after that training has occurred, we still have monitoring outings, even if folks don't have a leader. So nonetheless, if you have any questions throughout your outing, we always underscore that Rick and I are available by phone. So anytime you have questions, we're available via text or phone, and you can get in contact with us to provide some additional guidance. So gearing up for the sampling day, you can go ahead onto our volunteer resources page and prepare if you would like. We have that site locations map so you can figure out where you're going ahead of time if you want. And then we also have videos on our YouTube channel that are for all of the procedures, including flow monitoring, how to collect a water sample properly, as well as how to collect in-field chemistry measurements. You meet up with your fellow team at the locations listed in the PowerPoint. So for Washtenaw County, you meet at the new center, which is located in Ann Arbor. For Wayne County, currently we have folks meeting at the Downriver Utility Wastewater Authority in Wyandotte. And then for Livingston County, folks meet up at the Brighton Wastewater Treatment Plant. And when you meet up together, you'll prepare all of the equipment that you can ahead of time before going out into the field. So you'll prep your data sheets, you'll label bottles, and figure out a route to the sites. So these are the 2019 sites. We haven't updated our 2020 map yet, but we will have a Google map available with information about each site. So these little pins here, they will be available for you to click on, and the pin has information on where to park, how to navigate to the site. There'll be pictures of what the site looks like so you know that you're in the right spot, and anything else to be aware of, whether you need to check in with a property owner or sign in before you access the property, and any other tips and tricks for the monitoring sites that you're going to.
And they can use that to directly navigate through their Google Maps tool on their smartphones, right?
Exactly. Yep. So I recommend that when you do come together as the team, one person in the team download Google Maps if you don't already, because it's the platform that we do use for navigation from site to site. And if for some reason you don't have a smartphone, that's completely fine. I am more than willing to print out directions for you so that you're able to navigate with a hard copy. Upon arriving, you will label your sample bottles and go ahead and wade on in the streams, creeks, or rivers to actually collect your samples. During our in-person field training, we'll go through the specifics of what procedures you need to follow when collecting these samples to assure that they are the quality that we need. That includes like where you stand in the stream, how many times you rinse out the bottle, and how much water you need in the container. So we'll go through all of those specifics. Right now, we're just providing an overview. And then also at some of our sites, those long-term monitoring sites that Rick alluded to, you'll also take staff gauge measurements, which a staff gauge is like a big ruler in the water that helps us to determine fluctuations in water level over time. You'll also take in-field chemistry measurements using a YSI, which is this fancy thing in the bottom right-hand corner of the PowerPoint presentation. And you'll go ahead and lower that down into the water without touching the bottom. And that will bring up a series of different values for conductivity, temperature, total dissolved solids, pH, and dissolved oxygen. think I said them all. And you'll record those down on the data sheet. So this is a copy of the data sheets that we use in our program, where you can write everything down. You also may be assigned to take flow measurements, since after all, this is the chemistry and flow monitoring program. And we have a separate data sheet for collecting flow. On the right-hand side, you'll see our Marsh-McBurney flow meters, which is how we collect this information. But a general overview, you'll find a transect in the water where the flow is kind of an average along the stream. And you'll take about 10 to 15 different points along the creek. You'll take velocity and depth measurements and record those down on the data sheet. There'll be one person who will adjust this rod and the height of this little black probe on the silver rod, and then another person will have that the yellow black machine around their neck reading off the velocity readings, and then a third person will be recording the measurements. So flow does take a little bit longer. Collecting the samples and measuring the chemistry measurements usually doesn't take too much time, between 10 and 15 minutes at each site. Flow measurements can take a little bit longer, so between 20 minutes to sometimes an hour at our Huron River site. So whether or not you're taking flow measurements during your outings likely determines the length of your outings. I did previously mention this, but I did want to dedicate a slide to it. We do have these field methods training videos that have all of the logistics that you are more than welcome to look at ahead of time. We'd really recommend that you check these out prior to your field training so you get a better sense of what the procedures are, so that it's not quite an information overload when you are out in the field for your first time. Helps you to get more familiar with what we'll be doing. And as we said, we have our lab partners where you'll go ahead and drop off the samples at the end of your outing. And then lastly, we're gonna turn it back to Rick to talk about some IDEP. So it's Illicit Discharge Elimination Program. I did want to note the time though, it is 1:53. We still do have a little bit of content to get through, so we're going to keep going. We're likely going to go over 2 o'clock, but feel free to cut out if you need to. We will have this entire webinar online on YouTube. Go ahead, Rick.
Sure. So yeah, so Andrea mentioned IDEP, and each of the municipalities that we work with have an IDEP program that they are actively using to follow up on reports of pollution incidents and trying to identifying those sources and then remediating any pollution problems. One of the things that we developed, I guess about 3 years ago, was that we could be using this program as a way to pick up on some of those, to make some observations. Basically to turn the volunteers, turn you all into the eyes and ears of the Watershed Council and the watershed itself to find some of these emerging problems. So we ask that you be alert when you're in the field, look for some of these things that I'm going to go over pretty quickly today, and note those and report them immediately to us so that we can follow up with our municipal partners and get those situations remediated. So some of the things that we're looking for are things that occur along the banks. So things that are like heavy erosion sites, things that are construction that isn't being properly managed, like that top photo where Jason Frenzel from our office discovered that somebody was improperly doing some bank reconstruction without a permit. And so we need to report those to the appropriate authorities so that that can be corrected and taken care of. Sometimes they're just significant problems that have occurred due to overdevelopment or other causes that aren't maybe directly done on purpose, but that really need to be addressed, like the lower photo. The sewage discharge is another one that should be, pretty obvious to you if you're in the field. You'll smell it. Is probably the most direct way to find it. But observationally, visually, you can be looking for discolored water and other obvious, things that you would find in a sewage pipe or container that will be appearing on the banks are what you're looking for. Any kind of residues that are coming out of that, or like if we're looking at gray water sources like soap suds, foaming that's coming directly from a pipe is a good one to be looking for. Other discharges that you might observe that are a little bit harder to pick up on are oils. That's a common one that we've seen. We've discovered actually a couple of oil spills by volunteers that have observed a sheen on top of the water, or even a strong odor of gasoline or petrochemicals of some type. That you can pick up either coming directly from a pipe, or sometimes it's just coming downstream, and you need to follow it upstream to find where that's coming from. Any kind of discolored water that just doesn't look natural, or that is like separated from the natural flow of the water, is a good indicator of something that shouldn't be there. And that's what we're looking for. Go ahead to the next one. You might also observe things that don't quite look right, or that you expect aren't right, that could be natural occurrences. That's okay. Go ahead and report these to us if you're not sure about it. There are a couple that are pretty easy to identify. Tannins, especially in the fall, some of our September. We have an early fall. That'd be a really early fall to have in September around here. But there are places that are more in the woodier areas that you might get some kind of brownish reddish water that are natural, breakdowns of leaf matter or woody material that are okay, or the iron oxide deposits, that will make the water, particularly orange or red in color, come from that oxidation of iron coming out of the water. And sometimes they'll leave, kind of a slimy appearance on the rocks. That can be natural. And then a lot of the foams that you might see could be, are natural flocculants or natural occurrences. And there is a way to identify whether it's natural or unnatural, and to just sort of rub that material through your fingers. And if it's really slimy, then that is actually a soap or detergent. And if it's not, it's more of a natural foam like you're looking at right there. Of course, with the PFAS concern, you don't want to expose yourself to those foams, ingest any of that. So you'll want to make sure to take a proper cleanup procedures at the end of that if you have gotten into any of that foam. And so that's the range of things that, just some examples of the things that you might observe in the field. But really, it's anything that looks out of place to you. Go ahead and note it and report it to us. Take some photos of what you're looking at so that we can have a conversation. Note the location of what you're seeing. If you are able to kind of look upstream and find where it might be coming from, all of that sort of immediate investigation is very helpful to us in then relaying that to the proper authority. So you take all that and then make sure to notify us, on site if you can, because we might be able to give you further instruction, or at least by the time you return to the office or the lab, if you can let us know what you saw. Okay.
Okay, so I'm going to touch on field safety for a little bit. This does seem a little ironic, presenting on safety in the midst of a global pandemic, but we're still going to touch on it because, as we said, safety really is our #1 priority for our volunteers. So during your outing, we really encourage you to wear identifiable logoed gear. You'll see our volunteer Larry on the right side of the screen with both his HRWC shirt and hat on, which we appreciate. Those are available, hats are available for purchase, so are the shirts. But if you do not feel comfortable purchasing that, all of our waders that you borrow here at HRWC are logoed, so that can serve as your logoed gear. We also have safety vests with the HRWC logo on it as well that you are welcome to use. While in the field, we do ask that you bring this study site sign that we will encourage you to bring along. That notifies folks when you're parked on the side of the road what you're doing. It tells people that this is a study site and a little bit more about the procedures. In addition, we have talking points available for volunteers that are taped to the back of the clipboard in case you are approached by members of the public asking about what you're doing. Most all of the time, folks who come up to you are really just interested in what you're doing and want to commend you for your volunteerism and taking care of our natural resources. But if you do have any uncomfortable interactions with members of the public, we ask that you do refer those folks to Rick and I and provide them with our contact information. And lastly, just remember that when you're interacting with members of the public, you are representing the Huron River Watershed Council. So we ask that you bring your best foot forward and a degree of professionalism when interacting with other folks. Regarding weather, we always encourage you to use your best judgment. If you don't feel comfortable going out for any reason, we do respect that. Nonetheless, volunteers do go out rain or shine, and the one exception to that, though, is any sign of lightning or thunder. So if there is a big storm that is on the radar, we do ask that you come in and kind of evaluate the situation before canceling your outing completely. Oftentimes in the summer, as I'm sure many of you know, we have these, as Rick and I call them, popcorn storms. Sometimes it'll be intense for 15 minutes and then the storm will quickly pass. So have a little bit of patience. If it does seem to be a more prolonged, intense storm, your outing will be canceled. Additionally, dress appropriately. Don't come in flip-flops and shorts for your outing. Wear closed-toed shoes and socks, because socks are best when putting on waders. And then wear any additional clothing that is comfortable for you. So sometimes in the hot days of summer, that might be a t-shirt, but if you want more sun protection, maybe a long sleeve shirt. And with that, any hats or sunglasses that you need as well. We have bug repellent and sunscreen available for you to use at the office. But if you have any specific repellents or sunscreens that you would like to use, make sure to bring those and bring any water and snacks that you need as well. Our outings usually are between 2 and 3 hours. So take whatever necessary precautions and measures you need to make that comfortable for you. While in the field, you may also run into some unwelcomed guests. Likely poison ivy is the most frequent thing you will see out in the field. And our rule there is leaves of 3, let it be. So the bottom right hand corner, you'll see some poison ivy. Over on the left, I think that's poison oak. So if you see those 3-pronged leaves, avoid them. And it is really great because our waders can serve as like a protection to any sort of poisonous plants. So be careful when you're taking them off. Again, wear long pants and tuck them into your socks if you even want to ensure that you're not coming in contact with these plants. And then also we have tick ID cards. You'll see that on the screen to help you identify any ticks. I know usually for me, I mean, I'm out in the field a lot, but usually do find 1 per year, even though in Michigan, we kind of have a lower incidence of ticks compared to the East Coast. But if you have any questions about how to mitigate these pests and plants, definitely check out Michigan Department of Health and Human Services has information about both of these, and that is on our website. Great, so lastly, as I said, currently our commitment level is up in the air because of the situation with COVID-19. But since we'll be starting in early May tentatively, we'd like to see, between 4 and 6 sampling trips from May through September. We do have a little bit of flexibility there because of this situation, but that's really what we'd like to see. As I said, most outings are between like an hour to 3 hours, usually around like 2.5 hours is the average outing. Sundays in Wayne County, or the ADW, the Alliance of Downriver Watersheds, are a little bit longer outings. Those are between 3 and 4 hours, and then Livingston County outings are also a little bit longer, also 3 to 4 hours per outing. In Washtenaw County, all of the outings are in that usual 2 to 3 hour time slot, with some wiggle room, a little bit more, a little bit less sometimes, depending what sites you're going to and if you are monitoring flow. You can sign up week to week, or once those signups are open. Currently they are closed because of the situation with coronavirus, but when we do open those signups, you can sign up for the whole season, or you can sign up as you'd like. As I said, sites will rotate, and we assign those weekly, but if you have any sites you want to go to, you can email me and I can make sure you see areas in the watershed that you want to go to. And then we also touched on this with the poll, but you can go to all counties if you'd like, or just stick to places that are near your home. So we're going to launch one last poll to ask you whether or not after this presentation you plan to sign up for the program once we do make those signups live. You can answer yes, no, or still unsure. Give you a few seconds to fill that out.
That's great.
All right, so 98% of you have voted at this point. It looks like 92% said yes, 8% are still unsure, with 0% saying no. So glad that most of you are on board after this presentation, and if you have any questions after, you are more than welcome to reach out to Rick and I. So we have one last slide. Again, we will be keeping you up to date as the launch of the season becomes more clear. I will be your primary contact throughout the monitoring season, but you're welcome to email either of us as questions arise. One last reminder, once those signups do get disseminated to volunteers, we ask that you just sign up for one slot in that first month of monitoring so we can get as many people trained in the program as they'd like. And then throughout the rest of the season, you're welcome to sign up wherever you'd like. So now we will answer any questions that you have. You can type those in the question feature in the dialog box inside of your screen. All right.
First, I'd like to say that it is great to see that 92% of you are still planning to go forward. I think that makes sense. You're here, you're listening, and it sounds like it is quite still possible for you. But we also understand the few of you who are on the fence. This is obviously a very scary time in the world, and the thought of getting out and potential exposures is a very real concern. We are doing everything we can to stay on top of that and to follow all guidance, and that's going to be our first consideration as we move forward and make any planning arrangements for sampling in the season. So rest assured that if it still is determined that it's not a good idea for us to be getting together in teams and going out in cars together to do the sampling, that we will not put you at risk, and we will not encourage that, even for those of you who are risk takers among us. But if there is a way for us to do that safely, we are doing everything we can to make that possible. It is an important program to us. for the watershed to get this data, and we really don't want to have gaps in the data, but we recognize that keeping everybody safe is a primary concern.
Yeah, and just to reiterate, if at any point in the situation evolves, you feel less comfortable participating, you're more than welcome to drop out. Just notify me at any time if your plans change. Okay, so I'm going to go over to the questions. First question was, will you email us when the signups open? Yes, we will keep you in contact with any updates and when the signups are open. Okay, next is, oh, someone said, we're ready to support you when you're ready. So thank you for that. Is Livingston County sampling only on Monday at 10 a.m.? Rick, do you want to answer that one?
No, I believe we had two time slots currently planned for Livingston County. So that's why those outings will be a little bit longer. There are more sites to go to during those 2 days. I think it was Monday and Wednesday, if I'm not mistaken. Both of those were indeed at 10 a.m. That's because of the closing times of the lab in order to get the samples back, you know, before so that the lab is able to get analyses started. Essentially, it's the bacteria analysis that needs to get started immediately upon delivery. Those need to be done early in the afternoon. The drop-off needs to be done by early in the afternoon. So yes, those would be during the working week, during the working day. And I know most of you are probably working yourselves, and that might be difficult. So you might need to look for other sites in Wayne County or Washtenaw County.
Okay, and next question was, will there be training on how to use the YSI and flow meters? Yes, all of that will be covered during your field training. We'll go in depth into how to utilize all of these different tools. And then, as I said, we do have the tutorial videos that do provide you a brief introduction of how to use those machines. But yes, everything else will be coming in your field training.
And I know that you know, we've gone over an hour to talk to you about this program, and there's a lot going on in it. And we talked about a lot of technical detail. But I think hopefully the photos have given you a sense that it's also a lot of fun to get out with people and explore the watershed in this way.
Next question is, where can we get the HRWC gear? So that is available for purchase at the new center, so the HRWC offices in Ann Arbor. If you do live in other counties and you don't plan to come to Washtenaw County at all during the season, let me know and I can definitely connect you with some of the gear so that you are representing us out in the field and in your communities.
We also have available through online purchase, I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, Andrea, Watershed, what are they, companions guides, which are really a useful way to look at the river. So like if you're a paddler, paddler's companions, that's what the word I was looking for. So if you like to get out on the river and paddle, this is the thing for you. So you can go to our website and look for that as well. And it also helps you, you know, get a better understanding of where the sites are and different access points. So it could help you discover new locations to paddle, new locations to fish if you like to do that. It's a pretty useful guide. Those are available for purchase on our website.
All right, and then the last question was, are these slides available on your website? Yes, they will be available on the volunteer resources page, and then they will also be disseminated to you all via email within the next few hours this afternoon. Okay, if you have any last questions, feel free to email either one of us or get those in the questions box now. But it looks like that's all. So thank you all so much for coming out virtually and tuning in. We really look forward to meeting all of you in person, hopefully within the next few months. And we'll continue to keep you updated as the situation becomes more clear with the program launch. Anything else to add, Rick?
No, Again, very much appreciate you all turning out to watch this broadcast and to participate in the program, hopefully in the future. And I as well look forward to meeting you all. Hope you have a happy and healthy weekend. I hope you're enjoying spending more time with your family and perhaps friends, and just you know, stay safe out there.
Bye. Thanks, everybody.